Excellencies, honorable judges, honorable chief justices, distinguished guests, colleagues, dear friends, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence here physically in the room, as well as online, to join us for this very, very important occasion as part of the Hague Talks. Welcome to our event on women in justice in Africa. By way of introduction, my name is Revai Olbeck. I'm the Senior Advisor for Justice and Security with UNDP Crisis Bureau based in New York. First of all, I would like to advise you in terms of the schedule of our agenda today. The first part is going to be the Hague Talks, where we are really, really honored to have 3 honorable justices, women justices, whom we have been working with on the Women in Justices Initiative in Africa, who are going to share with us their journeys and their experiences to being where they are today. The second part of our program today is going to be a moderated conversation with the same judges, but hosted by our colleague from UN Women. Without further ado, given that we've got so much to discuss ahead of us, I would like to yield the floor to the 2 representatives of UNDP and UN Women who are going to give us their welcoming remarks. I'll first call upon Agi Veres, who is the UNDP Director for our Geneva office. Over to you, Agi.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, we are really, really honored to have you here in the room and also virtually for these extremely important conversations, why we need more women judges in the system and how that can help us address the multiple challenges that we are facing today. First of all, I want to thank our partners and the organizers for this event. First of all, our good UN system partners, UN Women, of course, the honorable judges present here, and those who are contributing partners, the Netherlands and Germany, for supporting this event. I think I have to do justice to this justice event by mentioning the context we are, of course, working in. And as a start of my remarks, it's very important to note, we all know we're coming out of a pandemic time, but in addition to that, we are facing multiple crises in the world. This is causing a lot of polarization, tensions, conflicts around the world, and more than ever that we are facing a justice emergency as well that is fueled by deep inequalities and inadequate accountability systems and exclusions. There is, unfortunately, a trend where we need more attention to the rule of law and justice, and the global upward trend on social mobilization against injustice demanding a deep transformation. And that's what we would like to see, this transformation coming through, and we will be very honored to hear from some of you and your experiences on this. The sense of injustice is pervasive and permeates all groups, in particular communities and the societies, and the intersections of poverty, discrimination, deprivation, and marginalization are unfortunately all present when we're looking especially in certain parts of the world. It's in response to this emergency particularly that we at UNDP have renewed and reinvigorated our policies and program interventions and efforts through the launch of the Justice Futures Co-Lab in The Hague, which is part of the occasion of our presence here today. And this is both a virtual and a physical space where we would like to have a role of convening for exploration, innovation, and addressing the justice challenges of today and the future as well, and prevent injustices of tomorrow. UNDP's work under this Justice Futures Co-Lab is implemented through our global program that's in a broader spectrum focusing on strengthening the rule of law, human rights, justice and security for a sustainable peace and development. And as a development agency, it's extremely important to understand for us that for sustainable development, having an adequate addressing the needs under the rule of law, human rights, and justice areas is extremely important. Strongly anchored in this, of course, is the SDG principle of leaving no one behind, which is a rights-based approach. And it's centered on empowerment, on inclusion, equity, human agency, and human development which brings together under UNDP's efforts of innovative approaches and focused on pivoting towards a people-centered justice approaches specifically. Under this umbrella, UNDP is very pleased to have the strategic partnership with the Gender Justice Platform, and I think we do need platforms like this and more occasions like this when we can hear from not just the Honorable Justice, but practitioners in the field and really discuss together how we can rely on the experiences and how we can actually bring this transformation by that I mentioned before. Over the years, just to mention a few examples and particular statistics, the Gender Justice Platform has enabled women and girls in 14 conflict-affected countries to receive support and access to justice services. More than 34,000 individuals received access to justice, of which 89% were women, including 500 women survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. Building on the previous successes of this platform, I am excited about the Women in Justice in Africa initiative that we will also present later today. This innovative initiative looks to develop various approaches, strategic knowledge products, regional and global platforms for women, leadership in justice, and deliver strategic programming in countries to contribute to women's participation in the justice sector. In other words, we need more women in the justice sector, and that's essentially the main conversation today. Women's participation in the justice delivery is a precondition for justice for all. Women's meaningful participation can enhance public trust and confidence, strengthening gender-sensitive decision-making, and spotlight the gender nature of certain crimes, in particular sexual and gender-based violence. We will hear today the voices from 3 women judges who I had the pleasure to meet before this event, and I'm very much looking forward to your experiences. And I have been already inspired by the energy and the views that you're bringing into this sector, and I think we're all going to benefit from hearing from your experiences in the field. The honorable judges will share their personal stories, and we will also hear some highlights of the research process that we developed on women leadership in situations in justice sector in Africa. I hope that these stories will also inspire you today, and then collectively we can go away from this event not just richer in our understanding and in our connections to these issues, but also hoping for some ideas of how we can bring by this kind of transformation collectively wherever we work and from whatever angle we are looking at the justice sector and these issues. So with that, thank you very much for your presence here and online. And again, an enormous thanks to the organizers and being part of the series of events here in The Hague, and very much looking forward to the speeches by the honorable judges as well. Thank you very much, and with that, I'll hand back to you.
Thank you so much, Egi, for those remarks and also for setting the context of the world that we are working in terms of issues of access to justice, but also emphasizing the aspects about people-centered justice as well as leaving no one behind. Without further ado, I'm going to invite Ms. Hodan Ado, who is the UN Women Representative for Tanzania, to come and give us her remarks. Over to you, Hodan.
Thank you so much, Ravai. Your Excellencies, honorable judges, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's really a pleasure for me to be here to represent UN Women and to join UNDP in welcoming you to this very important discussions on women's effective participation in the justice delivery. I would like to also thank all of the colleagues and partners that have made this event today possible. Until recently, the narrative of women's participation in public service has largely focused on women in politics, with less attention paid to sectors such as justice. However, through its general recommendation number 33 on access to justice for women, CEDAW committee shook the boundaries of this discussion to its tilt, if I could say, by stating and in fact by requesting states to confront and remove barriers to women's participation in judicial systems and take steps, including temporary special measures, to ensure that women are equally represented in the judiciary and other law implementation mechanisms. Similarly, the UN Basic Principles on the independence of the judiciary provides that there shall be no discrimination on the basis of sex in the selection of judges. However, we all know the reality, and we'll hear the examples, the experiences from our 3 judges here, that women continue to be significantly underrepresented in judicial offices and legal profession across the globe. This disparity is particularly evident in the senior level positions where women appointed to office often encounter bias and discrimination. Their behavior is scrutinized, their qualifications are more frequently questioned by their male colleagues, and their objectivity is more likely to be challenged. The perceptions that the rule of law, security, and access to justice are primarily male domains has hindered progress towards gender equality. We must challenge these stereotypes and unfounded beliefs that undermine women's participation in justice and security sectors, and false notions such as there is scarcity of the qualified women to fill existing positions, that certain areas are no-go, they're too dangerous, or too demanding for women, whether they are in their menstrual cycles or whether they're pregnant. And this also belief is that it's affecting their performance. We need to go beyond that. Furthermore, we also need to look at that women are often confined to low-profile cases in areas like family law or restricted in lower courts. While it is essential to ensure women are present in these areas to address women's concerns effectively, we must also ensure that they have equal opportunities to work in other domains, because including women at all levels and at all thematic areas of justice and security yields tangible benefits, as my colleague had said earlier, for women, but also for the entire society. We've seen several evidence that having more women judges and frontline justice officials can create a more supportive environment to women in courts, leading to improved outcomes in cases of sexual violence. We also need to effectively address the shortfall of women's participation. Strategic action is required. Affirmative action targets for the justice sector needs to be integrated into the broader affirmative action policies of states and effectively linked to national policies and commitments to women. I serve in UN Women in Tanzania as the country representative, and I have seen that the commitment of the government of Tanzania, for instance, to achieve gender equality in the judiciary is clear, where you have a women president, making that commitment and ensuring that we have at least now 47% of women in the judiciary in Tanzania. These are commitments that have to be made at the policy level, but also we need to see them in law. Promoting gender equality in the justice sector also requires supporting national associations of women professionals, such as lawyers and judges. In Tanzania, UN Women, in partnership with many other UN colleagues and development partners, have been working closely with the Women Judges Association, TAUJA, it's been a partnership that has been instrumental in advancing the gender-responsive adjudications of cases. As a result of this, TAUJA has been able to provide gender-sensitive legal education to both women and men judges, established a mentorship program for women judges, enhanced judicial activism, as well as published a guideline, the first ever gender bench book on women's rights in Tanzania, which provides judiciary officers with an easily accessible tool to support them to make gender-responsive decisions, rulings, and judgments. These peer support mechanisms and associations among female professionals are instrumental for the valuable exchange, learnings, and mutual support, and can represent women's interest to negotiations with decision makers, such as appointment committees. This has worked in Tanzania, and I'm sure we'll hear from our lady justices that the wonderful experience that they have been able to achieve in their own countries. These are just few examples of the measures that can be implemented. While a challenge is definitely, undoubtedly ahead of us, it is certain it is not unsurmountable. By working together collectively, UN Women, UNDP, our development partners, our governments, and in the judiciary as well, in the countries that we're serving and supporting, these efforts can break the barriers that hinder progress towards the equal representation of women in the judiciary, aligned with the ambitious sustainable development goals set for 2030. In closing, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to every one of you for being here and for your unwavering commitments. I look forward to learning about the journeys and experiences of our esteemed lady justices who are here this afternoon, and the sharing of best practices and recommendations that we can take forward in our countries. UN Women remains committed to working with UNDP and African Women Judges Associations and networks and other partners and stakeholders in the justice sector towards this end. Thank you so much. I hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Hodan, for those inspiring words, and also thank you for reminding us of the normative framework, which is what guides all of us in terms of this work when it comes to what we need to achieve in terms of gender equality in the public sector. And thank you also for reminding us that we need to extend this beyond women in politics and really focus on other sectors that have been neglected, including women in the justice sector. Without further ado, I would like at this particular point to start our next session, which is on the Hague Talks, and we are going to be inviting our different judges to come in and speak to us about their experiences and journeys. I would like to start by inviting Honorable Justice Amina Agi to come and take the floor. Our pleasure to have you here.
Is this not enough? Good afternoon. Distinguished guests, I have like 5 minutes, so I don't have the time to do all the greetings. Now, the first thing I asked myself was the question, they put a question mark there, why are having more women judges benefits all of society? And for us to be here at The Hague, which is also known as the judicial capital of the world, that tells you that in 2023, something that you would have thought is a non-issue, that women have gone past all that, we can still be asking this kind of question. So I was talking to, I don't know if Prof is here, Professor Fatsa. We were discussing that, my topic as to what to do. I retire on the 3rd of September this year, when I reach 70. And by that time, it meant I would have worked for the federal government of Nigeria for 45 years. So which experience was I supposed to talk about today? So I've been in that dilemma. So talking with Prof back and forth about the topic I had to talk to, there was a point at which he turned and looked at me with this glint in his eyes. And he said, you know what the most important factor is that there is a glass ceiling where women are concerned. A glass ceiling is an invisible barrier. You can't see it. And yet, nothing can make you cross it because either society, culture, religious reasons, whatever it is, that glass ceiling has been put there. But most important, not just the fact that there's a cultural barrier or religious barrier or whatever barrier, Prof pointed out also there's the sociological. There's the sociological where the woman herself does not think that she can be a judge. Some women ask me, how can you sentence anybody to death? I can't do that. You know, Nigeria, we must add O. I can't do that, O. How can I do that? How can you do that? You know, so that by themselves. So in talking about this sociological bent, that's when like you know how they say bulb went up in my head that, oh yes, I can tell stories about that. First of all, as a child, then as a wife. When I was about 14, a captain in the Nigerian army in front of my parents asked, you know the normal question you ask kids, so what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, I am going to be a lawyer. I didn't say I want. And the first thing that comes out of his mouth was, oh, so you want me to stand up for you one day? What has that got to do with I want to be a... Oh, so you want me to stand up for you one day? As God would have it, he lived long enough to see me become a High Court judge, and he lived long enough to stand up for me as a High Court judge then. May his soul rest in peace. Now, another aspect that shows now I'm a wife. I was a lecturer at the Nigerian Law School in Lagos, and my husband moved me to his state in Sokoto at that time for his own reasons in 1988. My late husband, he died in 2001. So I moved to Sokoto as a chief magistrate in 1988. Now, by 1991, there was state's creation. So that state was split into two, and I had to now move to his own state in 1991. In 1992, the state that the first state, Sokoto that is, now needed judges because most of the judges had moved to this new state. So they needed judges. The chief judge of that state turns up in the house, asks me for my husband, and I took him there. Apparently, what he came to ask him for was permission to send up my name as a judge of Sokoto State. He asked him permission. My husband it's his decision, didn't tell me, didn't ask me. When he was then a senator in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So when his home state heard that Sokoto was trying to get me as a judge, they said, how can you be a senator and your wife is going to work in when the state creates the enmity that comes when you have one state created into two. How can you be? No, tell her to wait. We will appoint her. We're in the process, so we will wait. So there I was. Nobody asked me. He didn't discuss it with me because it was not my decision to make. So my fate is being decided as to which state should I work for as a judge, that one or this one. So I can't even ask. So this is how I waited. Now, Sokoto did a very smart thing. While these ones were dilly-dallying, because it's his home state, so they were not in a hurry, this state now issues me a letter of appointment, May 19th, 1992. And the letter says I'll be sworn in on the 26th of May, 1992. Up till Friday, before that Monday, nobody had asked me. My husband had not discussed it with me. I didn't know whether I was going to take on the appointment or whether I was going to wait here. So Friday, and I actually waited because they would ask you, how do you do that? But a wife is a wife. And there are certain dynamics in a marriage that you have to. I just couldn't ask. So what is my fate? What have you decided? So Friday, we were driving back from Birnin-Kebbi to Sokoto. We stopped in his village, which is in between. And they stopped the car. He goes into a cyber cafe. I'm seated in the car. Half an hour or so, comes back and offers me a letter. And he gives me a letter. And what did I read? To the chief judge of Kebbi State that it was an honor and privilege to have served the state as a chief magistrate, but I'm accepting the offer of Sokoto. So there I was on a Friday. That's when I knew I was now going to be a High Court judge on Monday. So I was sworn in on Monday, and when my sister asked that why was I not excited, he said that what was there to be excited about? I made sure she knew that what is there being a judge. So, no, there was no time to celebrate to everything. Bottom line, I have about a minute to go, is that if that could happen to me, in a family setting, husband and wife. Can you imagine that replicated in society, in the community, in everywhere? Things have changed a lot, but things are still the same in a lot of places. Basically, my last thing to say would be that a lot of women, when we think of the sociological barrier, a lot of women have locked themselves in a mental prison and that they can't imagine getting out of. Because it's all, like Prof put it, he says auto-exclusion. Nobody stopped you from being a judge. Nobody stopped you from aspiring. Nobody has stopped you. But you have stopped yourself. Because inside your head, you just don't believe that it could happen or that you could be a judge at all. And so you just step back. Anyway, my time is up. Thank you so much. And that is how, like I would say, I got to the Supreme Court at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Justice Agi, Justice of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, for those inspiring words and for breaking it down to the minute detail of the sociological barriers that you faced. And I'm sure that the whole team is inspired. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you are eager to get into a conversation with Justice Agi. But let me assure you that there will be an opportunity towards the end for you to have a conversation and ask questions. So for now, please note down any questions, comments, or inputs that you may have. To keep our program moving, it is really my honor to invite Justice Elisa Boerekamp, the High Court Judge and General Director of the Center for Judicial and Legal Training in Mozambique, to come and share with us her experiences and her journey as well. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. And honorable judges, all protocol observed. We don't have much time, but I'm glad. First, I prepare a presentation in my mind to talk about it, but then Judge came here and she challenging me to talk about this, what I want to talk. Because I do believe that women have a say. They have the power to choose what they want to be. My name is Elisa Samuel Boerekamp. I was born in the small suburb in Maputo, so-called Shamankulu. And for the very beginning, I knew I want to be an important woman in the society. Because of my grandmom, I was raised for my grandmom, while my mother was trying to start a family. So she left me and my sister to live with my grandmom. My grandmom, as well, she was a single mother with a lot of children, let's say my aunties and uncles, and she used to work as well to feed them and the grandchildren and granddaughters. So I always, maybe without knowing it, I always look at her as a role model, and also my mother, because she used, of course, to have another family, but she was the one who worked, because my stepfather, he was, in Africa, it's normally men's so-called businessmen, yeah, while the women go to work. My mother was like that, so she also inspired me to want to be more. I am a judge and also the director of the Judicial Training Institute in Mozambique. When I started my journey in the law school, I faced this first barrier about to be a woman in this world. The first barrier was that the university that I was studying, it's Catholic University of Mozambique, they were this program where the best students, they could continue the studies abroad in order for them to come back and to be the lecturers of the university. in the first group, it was 3 men, 3 colleagues. I was part of the second group. So they chose 2 men and 1 woman, which one of them was me. And when the director, actually she's a Dutch, she used to live in Mozambique, the pedagogical director, she went to the dean and she showed him the 3 names. Among them, 1 was mine. The dean said, no way, we are not sending women abroad. And my director asked why. You know, it's difficult to deal with women because she will fall in love and she will not want to come back. And therefore, we are not sending women. And this director, Corrie de Moore is her name, she said, no, Dean, we need more, we also need women teachers or lecturers, professors in this university. She stated like that, to inspire other women. And then I end up traveling to Portugal. I had my license degree in law. And even in Portugal, I went to the Judicial Training School in Lisbon, and I went back to Mozambique to become a judge. So I've been working as a judge for more or less 70 years. When I was back in Mozambique, I was appointed to be a judge in a small district, in Gaza province, where I see my colleague here from Mozambique. I think it's come from Gaza province, which is, of course, it's a patriarchal society with high levels of social, religious, and customer stereotypes. So for that, so I was a small lady. I'm a little bit bigger now. I was 28 years old, without a husband, without children. So in their eyes, I was not fit to represent the judicial power on that district. They used to questioning, how come this government appoint this little lady to become judge? Well, they think the executive was the one who appointed, but it's not like that. And so, as you see, I learned from the very beginning to fight for my place. I don't think women need to fight to have a say or to the certain position. So I worked in that district for 6 years. I faced a lot, of course, within the courtroom or whether exercising my duties as judge president. I faced a lot of discrimination, contempt, and disrespectful treatment. But I believe that if it was not for my strong personality, allow me to say this, I would quit, because I've seen my colleagues also, fellow colleagues, judges, quitting the position because of the criticism, because of this discrimination. So today, in the position I am as a Judicial Training Center director, I have this power to inspire younger candidates to enter the careers to become a judge. So that's why my message today for all of us is that we continue doing our work, what we are doing. It's important to promote an independent judiciary, which includes women, because it's important to have women within the judiciary. Those women can inspire other women, and also, as they were saying, other women's colleagues, to want to be in this position, in the decision-making position for a better society. Because women are also part, they must participate to bring peace, society, and security. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Justice Elisa Boerekamp, for your inspiring and motivational story, and also for citing the empowerment that you received from the 2 great women of your family, your mom and your grandmom. And I think that was a strong foundation for you. Moving on to our third Hague Talk for today, it is my pleasure to invite Judge Salome Busa, who is the judge of the International Criminal Court here in The Hague and hails from Uganda. Over to you.
Good afternoon, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I thank the organizers for inviting us in this strange interaction. We normally not talk about ourselves. We always talk to other people about what we do. So my story is slightly different, but it's still the same. I became a lawyer because my father was a lawyer and his brother following him was also a lawyer. But I was not prepared for the societal obligations that are cast on a lawyer and a judge in a society which is largely illiterate, which is poor, and which may be neglected in some ways, especially the women and children. So I started private practice because my father passed on, God rest his soul, and I took over his farm. And in this practice, then at that time in the late 1980s, I was one of the few women who practiced law. So the duty to represent indigent women through our Association of Women Lawyers fell on us. So we represented a lot of these women, and that's when my eyes really opened to the gigantic task we face. We have a lot of women out there who are bonded, who are shackled in bonds of the patriarchal society. They have no rights, they have no say, they have no means. So I started representing these women and vowed to make a difference in their lives. And that's also how I became a judge at the national level, because I thought that if I joined the bench, I could make decisions really that could uplift these women. And one of the decisions that gives me a lot of pleasure in recalling involved a woman who was married customarily to this man for 30 years. And this man was denying the marriage. He was denying that she was entitled to anything. He just wanted to send her on the street, without a thing. So I declared the marriage valid, and of course, her entitlement to matrimonial property. Now, I like other speakers have said, we as women, even when we are educated, we lack the confidence to take bold steps to further our careers. So to become an international judge, I needed a prod from our Association of International Judges. I was prodded by the then president who founded the organization. He said, why don't you try? I said, but do I qualify, really? I mean, I've never been anywhere, I've never done anything, and so on and so forth. But this lady pushed me, and we all need this nudge. We need to push women to take the bold step, to go further than where they are, because we are capable. Society has decided to judge us differently. We are not clothed with the same intelligence as the men, even when we are trained and educated, probably more than them. So there's a presumption of incompetence on all of us. So then we have to struggle very hard. Even when we get the jobs, we have to work twice as hard before we are accepted as women leaders. And as leaders, we are placed under a microscope. When a lady makes a mistake, it's magnified and it's closed door for all the women folk to be depicted like they are nonsense, they are illogical, they are emotional, they are not fit for public office and so on. But the society is very permissive of men's foibles, even magnified ones. They wink at them. Nobody wants to say anything. They continue in office. So we have really a very, very hard task ahead of us as women. We have to fight for our own, and we all must join the battle. We have to hold those who are behind us and push those who are ahead of us to go ahead. So the obstacles, obviously, every woman has found obstacles. We are all discriminated, no matter what position we hold. You are first discriminated as a student, then you are discriminated as a lawyer. And I'll give you 2 examples because my time is almost up. I was the founding president of the African Law Society, which brings together all law societies in East Africa. And we prepared a document, chose an office where we are going to be stationed, which is Arusha, because it's the East African community capital, and called all these lawyers to approve the document. They asked us questions, all sorts of questions, and because I was the president, the burden fell on me to answer those questions, most of them. Now, after everybody was satisfied and the document was adopted, the Kenyan lawyer approached me and said, "For the first time, I've understood why you were elected president. I had passed the exam." Otherwise, he didn't trust the colleagues who had given me the power until he himself thought that I passed the exam he set for me. The other example is when you want to be promoted or you want to go for international service, the roadblocks that are put in your path. People of goodwill exist in this world, and they come and remove the roadblocks and you go through. But the bosses who are our bosses put the biggest stumbling blocks in our path, and that's not good for us. So we need to get rid of all these shackles, and we need your help, and we need more judges, and all the chief justices, and with all due respect, we need more women chief justices. Why are all the chief justices male? We need female chief justices to bring perspectives, and I'm proud to stand here as one of the judges of the International Criminal Court because we have gender parity in the court. We are 8 female judges and 9 male judges at the moment. And we bring perspectives, female perspectives to justice. There are perspectives which males cannot see unless we point them out. So we represent gender representation, we represent gender perspectives, we represent gender justice. So get us on board. I thank you very much.
Justice Bosa, thank you so much for those remarks and sharing your experiences on the rise of someone who started as a female lawyer to become now a judge of the International Criminal Court. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of our Hague Talks, which was the first part of our event. We are now going to move on to the next part, and we are going to reorganize our stage, so bear with us as we do so. So I'm going to be inviting, at this particular point, the judges back on stage. I'm going to be inviting Agi as well as Hodan to join us here. While they come and take their seats, ladies and gentlemen, a reminder that we are going to open up for conversation and discussion in a little while. Great. So we are going to start now with a very, very brief presentation of the joint initiative by UNDP and UN Women on women justice initiatives in Africa, where a study was done and some important recommendations and findings were made. So over to you, Egi.
Thank you very much. As mentioned, I will share with you some of the findings of our study and our research about women's participation in the justice sector. But I think in reflection to what we heard from the 3 female judges, that's already giving us a picture. And what struck me most in your personal story is that it's not just about competence. It's not just about you being there and trying to move ahead, but it requires strength and resilience and actually fight for your advancement, which, given the competence, given the education that's behind it, it's, I guess, the injustice of the situation that we want to look behind the scenes. And that's the study. What the study is trying to do is understand the facts and the actual data behind it. So in terms of what we found in our study that's being finalized now, and thank you very much for the great cooperation with UN Women on this, just to give you a little bit of context, especially regarding the African continent. So Africa has the largest number of women heading constitutional courts and acting as chief justices. on average, 4 in 10 judges in Africa are women. So that's, in a way, good news. At the same time, I think, hearing from your stories and looking at the data, overall women's representation in justice in the continent remains relatively low. So there's still a lot of work ahead of us to bring a transformation forward. This reflects also how gender inequality in this sector is actually a very complex problem. It's not just one reason or another. It's really the intersectional challenges that need to be taken into account when we're thinking about proper solutions and when we're thinking about how can we bring by more of the gender balance and the gender perspective into the justice sector. So I want to share with you some of the main barriers that we actually found through our study. The first obstacle that women face when trying to enter the justice sector are societal barriers, and that's exactly, I think, where all of you alluded to. You mentioned several examples on your career, and of course it would be interesting to see if you have faced any barriers vis-a-vis access to education, because what we found is one of the main barriers is actually entering the education system for this track and face the negative societal norms and in many cases discriminatory recruitment processes as well. And once we see women actually enter the justice system, women face additional barriers at the legal frameworks and work environment as well. And these environments and the circumstances are not particularly adapted to additional family and societal roles that women are also expected to fulfill, including the lack of work and family balance. When asked in our consultations what are the main barriers pointed by women were the relocation, 44%, harassment, 41%, and security concerns, 37%. So these 3 main reasons are basically taking up the main set of barriers for women to enter the justice system. And then as we look forward to advancing in the career, to progress in their career and get leadership positions, Honorable Judge Ogi mentioned the glass ceiling, and that's exactly what we are seeing, that the women encounter legal barriers, lack of institutional transparency, and moreover, a lack of political will to provide the opportunities in fair conditions for women to advance in this sector. Nevertheless, I think despite this challenging context, there are, of course, very positive lessons learned and very good examples. And I think we need to look at these good examples as not just pockets of success, but trends that we can connect together and that actually give us a really good torchlight ahead to see how we can address the situation collectively. So some of the recommendations and the lessons learned that come from our report is that leadership and champions on gender equality inside the judiciary system are really key to set positive role models. So we need more of you who are not just walking the talk, but actually talking the talk, so that you're sharing your experience, you're inspiring others in addition to doing the job and being role models through that. But it's important to have champions from other institutions to support the buy-in of women leadership and participation as well. Religion and customary courts tend to have less representation of women and gender-responsive processes, so we need to acknowledge the different contexts to find entry points to support better justice responses from all the different justice actors. So it's not just one part or another, but we need this complexity of the system to work together. Then gender-sensitive procedures for women participation are useful, including gender quotas, gender-sensitive capacity trainings. And you mentioned that interesting example of 1 out of 3 was sent abroad, and that was even questioned. Mm-hmm. So quotas and other policy instruments can help with that, to encourage that kind of inclusion. But of course, political will can have a greater impact. So not everything can be solved through legal frameworks and reforms, but it's a political will and the push behind it that matters, as I'm sure you have seen it in different countries as well. Civil society plays also a key role in advocacy. For example, good cases of civil society advocacy for gender-inclusive benches in Kenya and South Africa. We have seen great examples that are proving this point very strongly. Then the insider-outsider collaboration initiatives are women leaders in judiciary support other young women and encourage them to apply to the justice sector. So not just being role models, but actively supporting and working with other women to enable this positive cycle and to increase the participation. We have very good examples in Rwanda, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe, just to mention a few. And finally, I think one key message to leave this introduction with is gender equality in justice is not only about having more women in the system. It's about equal representation for strengthening the justice system, providing better justice services for all, and improving the perception of the justice system by the entire society. I want to leave you with that thought, and many thanks again for your introductions, and over to our moderators to continue the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aggie, for those remarks and also for sharing the findings in the recommendations out of the study. For our next conversations, ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Hodan Ado is going to moderate a very, very direct conversation, and immediately after that, we will then have a Q&A so that we can have the floor open. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Ravai. And thank you so much, Lady Justices who are here with us. If I could maybe start, I know that we don't have much time, but you did definitely share with us a lot of experience on the barriers that you had faced, and of course the report, the wonderful report that our colleague from UNDP had shared in terms of the findings. But I wanted us to sort of dwell a little bit more on issues on the lessons, your personal experience in terms of advancing more women in justice sector. If I could maybe start first with, we'll go this time this way around. So Judge Bosa, if you could tell us, if you can share some experience, one or two experience in terms of how you went about in advancing the presence of women in the justice sector.
Personally, I have encouraged a lot of my colleagues, peers, and juniors, and even seniors to have confidence in themselves when they are positions to apply, and not to be reticent. We need to get rid of the reticence in us because it's inculcated in us by the system in which we all come from, the system that privileges males over us. So we need to support each other, and we need to encourage everybody to try and advance. Because you never know. If you don't try, how will you ever know whether you would have succeeded? So try as much as possible. And I think this point was mentioned by you, that associations, our own national associations, are very important in this regard. We have international associations that bring us together, the national associations, even regional ones. These associations do a very important job in bringing us together, sharing perspectives, and encouraging us. And they should go further and ensure that when there are vacancies, they mobilize women judges and professionals to ensure that they identify the right candidates and encourage them to apply. And because some of us went through that process. I was encouraged by the International Association of Women Judges, and here I am, you know.
Here you are.
Yes. So we need that encouragement from our associations, and of course, we need encouragement from our respective families. My family was very encouraging to me. My husband is deceased, God rest his soul, but I got a lot of support from him. But of course, the national policy of my government was to really empower women. That one has slackened a bit, unfortunately, but at the time, they were very, very strong in ensuring that female participation in every field is encouraged. And I think that policies, institutions, constitutions that enable that environment are very important.
Thank you so much. And what about Mozambique? What can you share with us in terms of, how you went about, or the environment has helped to create more women in the justice, or that we need to have more women?
Yes, that's very true. And as I mentioned before, I am in a very good position to contribute with more women entering not only to become judges or prosecutors, but also in the whole justice chain, if I can say so. I did not mention before, but I used also to be the member of the Judicial Commission in Mozambique. And which is the board where we discuss, the transfer of women and the movement of judges. I mean, not women, sorry, judges. We deal with the discipline of judges as a whole. And I was member of this committee set up by this commission to prepare the regulation for transfer of judges. And I was the rapporteur at the same time. And when we were drafting the principle, the main principles, I include among them the gender perspective. Of course, the committee, we were 3 women and 1 judge. It was younger than us, so he didn't have a voice. But then when we went to the plenary to discuss about the final draft to be approved, there were colleagues, men judges, they said, but we don't need to put it in this regulation because we already have this in the Constitution or in the judges' statutes. And I tried to, arguing on that time, stated that there is these limits and barriers of constraints that men judges doesn't face when it comes to transfer judges from one place to another. But they keep saying that we don't need to put this in the regulation. Of course, they didn't explain why. I mean, they were like, no, in terms of legal, in the Constitution, in the judges' Constitution, we do have this rule. But we end up with this norm in the statutes. I'm also the executive secretary of the Mozambican Judges Association in Mozambique. So I also contribute by mostly encouraging finalist students for universities to apply. We do have this program where we train, we prepare future candidates for them to be, because in Mozambique, to enter the judicial career, you must pass an exam. It is a bureaucratic method. So it's transparent, which is also good because then you can choose from what the Faculty of Law offer you within the society. Because you do have also men's and women's candidates for the both sides. So it's safe to say that nowadays, I mean, actually, I am working towards this, encouragement, promotion, to have more women judges or more women prosecutors. And we do have. The report, Mozambique was part of the countries that the report is talking about. And unfortunately, we still need to have more women in the decision, in the higher courts. We now more or less in equal, let's say, gender equality in terms of the courts of entrance and higher courts, but we, as Judge said, we must go to the Supreme Court, or at least to the Court of Appeal. But I trust we will be there. The Chief Justice are here, and they will help us get there. Thank you.
I believe you will, for sure. Let me now then turn to, thank you so much, Lady Justice. Let me turn now to Judge Amina Alji from Nigeria.
Nigeria, we have Nigeria. When I was telling you my story, that was in 1992. We are a success story when it comes to women judges. It's the men that want to are now the one fighting to get a foothold in the place because we have taken over the entire judiciary. By the time I was elevated to this Court of Appeal in 2002, the women had taken over. First of all, because of bad pay. Remember, judges were not really paid very well in terms of the type of money the men make when they are lawyers. So a lot of men found it easier to pursue the money and not the work. First of all, your lifestyle is changed. You don't have enough pay. You can't socialize. You can't do this. You can't do that. So they preferred to go there. Then they just woke up, and the women had taken over the judiciary. We have a state, Lagos State. If I approximate that they have 60 judges, they have more, yes. But if you say they have 60 judges, 50, 51, 52 are women. The rest are men. The men are so few, And then we now infiltrated the Court of Appeal. The last place to fall was the Supreme Court. They were like, no, at that time, 17 men, 17. Like, no, a woman was equal. So they were forced to, I think by 2006, to get the first woman. And by the time I got there in 2016, I was the sixth woman. And they've retired and gone. I have 2 now behind me. And right now, we're only 4 left. But there are appointments because we're still short-staffed. So we are a success story in that regard. But when you talk about personally, what have we, as women judges, what have we done in our individual rights to see that things change? First of all, when people see somebody do something that they never thought they could, and see that, it motivates a lot of people. But personally, I could tell a story of when I was in the Court of Appeal in one of the divisions, my presiding justice, I didn't know he had that problem. His wife was being considered as a judge. He is a justice of the Court of Appeal then. And I was talking about all I'm taking care of my husband's family and everybody. And he's looking at me. I didn't know that I was touching something very sore. And all I just said was, can you imagine if I wasn't a judge, to be able to carry everybody that needs to be carried, taking care of everybody that needs to be taken care of, my husband's people and all that. He just kept quiet. Next thing you know, 2-3 weeks later, he comes to me and said, when you were talking that day, you didn't know. My wife was being offered the appointment as a High Court judge. And I was going to say, I told her, no, she cannot be. But after listening to you, so if I died now, or my wife sitting at home, who is going to? So that's how he said, you don't know what you did. It was like a paradigm shift in his head. Quickly, he said, no, they should give it to her. She became a judge. He later died, and she was a judge and able to take that. So we cannot underestimate the individual, what even today we are praying that one person somewhere in the world who may listen, or like I told her, what we're saying today will outlive us. Long after we're gone, somebody, the internet never forgets. Somebody will put it on and say, oh, see what she said, so-and-so said in 2023 and all that. So you don't know. It's a living message that will motivate somebody to say, I can do that. And then when you do that, you help, not just here, but you're also like a ripple effect. It's spreading to other women and for generations to come. And that is what the essence of what we're doing here should be.
Absolutely.
To motivate and inspire generations of women to come to say, let's do what we can to in the judicial sector to be able to make sure that justice for all is achieved.
Absolutely. Wow, that's fantastic. You are definitely inspiring, I'm sure, thousands of young women, not only in Nigeria, but I'm sure all over the countries that we're serving, in Mozambique, in Uganda, but throughout Africa. So definitely, your presence has definitely made a difference, I'm sure. There's one last question I want to ask before we open the floor for questions, and I'm sure that there are a lot of participants who want to ask you questions. But just, we've heard the recommendations from the UNDP and UN Women report. But again, at your personal level, what would you recommend? What advice would you give to encourage more women like yourselves to come up, whether it's to advice for agencies like UNDP and UN Women, your governments in terms of, the policy that was mentioned earlier, the training opportunities, the education opportunities, many of it, all these factors that are preventing women, but also, that steps that we're seeing, that things are not gloom and doom, and that they are a lot of women joining the justice sector. And one particular one I remember from the study was the lack of data and analysis, that we're not often keeping, monitoring how many women are actually entering this sector and how many are dropping out because of these social norms that you have mentioned. But what recommendations would you give to UNDP, to UN Women, to our governments, to our development partners, or to the judges, male judges who are here today? We'll start with you, Madam.
My Lords, the Chief Justices, let me start with you because you are here. Please ensure that you enable women to join the judiciary. I know you have a lot of leeway, a lot of influence. Talk to your presidents. Make sure that as many women as possible join the judiciary, because the women, as one of us has said, I don't remember who said it, the mere presence of a woman in a position will encourage people to come forward. For example, we have witnesses in our court who will not talk to anybody but a woman if they are female, and they want to talk about their experiences and they are traumatic and so on. They will not trust anybody else. So maybe people will trust the institution of justice more if they see more women, because they know we have a tender touch. I'm sure we have our other side, but we do have a tender touch with regard to justice. So trust us and get more women on board. Now, the legal framework is the responsibility of the government, and I think that the UNDP and all the other UN organizations, UN Women, you can prod these governments into opening up the legal space to ensure equality of women and men, to ensure institutions that can put this in place. So, for example, equal opportunities commissions. We have one in Uganda. I don't know how it's functioning, but I think it's important. We have enabling provisions in the Constitution which give us equal treatment to men, although that is still on paper, but we try. And also affirmative action where it is needed. Yes. So I think that the legal framework and the political will, of course, which must go with it, is really is the starting point. If it is not there, nothing is going to be done. So I think the UN and other institutions should really work on that and ensure that the political space is opened up. Then the others will follow. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe could I ask, building on that, in terms of then education and training and so forth, can you maybe build on that question in terms of...
Yes. Oh, thank you. That is my comfort zone, actually. Well, first let me congratulate UN Women's and also UNDP because of this program. It's very important. As Auda mentioned earlier, normally the projects they used to focus on women in politics, women in media, but justice sector it's left aside. So this is a very important project, not because we are here, but also because it's something that you are building, starting from us. You are listening to us. The Chief Justice are here, so it's important to know, because normally it's not something that, because justice sector it's closed traditionally. So now to see women sitting here, judges, and speak out, even in front of my lord here, about what are the barriers and the limits that we're facing, because they can't see. They are busy working in the processes and also and other policies within the judiciary. So it's important to continue with this kind of project. But more than that, it's important to put, at least I'm speaking about African female judges, who they don't have these opportunities to be with other women judges in the world, and to see that they can do more. They can be part of the decision-making process and everything. And also, I think it's important to give them the opportunity to be part of commissions, committees, where the focus is not only gender, but where they can let's say, give their ideas, their perspective of how to do things. But mostly, the legal framework is there. Our constitutions, all democratic constitutions, they talk about equality. The policies are also there, most of the countries, but the practice, okay? The daily basis. Yes. So we still need to talk about it. We still need to address these limitations, these barriers. We still need to have women talking about it. Of course, women sometimes they can be also part of the problem. As you can see, I am the director of the Judicial Training Institute, but they don't trust in my capacity. You know, it's like the minister of the Chief Justice or not the General Prosecutors. He likes you, that's why you were there. You see, so maybe you've been sleeping with one of them. So, but it's normal because it's the lack of the perception they have about the capacity that we do have as women and as professionals. Yes. And in the beginning, I was like getting so upset with them. But then, when I was, like learning more about, because this is also one of the, this is a result of lack of understanding about the gender stereotypes and everything. Even educated women, they don't know about it. So my opinion is that we really need to continue these training programs, these workshops, and these programs. I know the government of the Netherlands is sponsoring. So keep going, doing that, so that we can gain more in terms of trust, in terms of confidence about women. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll give the last word to Judge
On what angle are you going to pick for me?
Well, I think it's in terms of still the recommendations. What would you recommend? Would you like to add anything that colleagues have said before, or?
Well, what would we recommend? I mean, I'm sure the same thing that we keep join and we keep talking, but basically, it's like opening up the opportunity. If you're asking about UNDP and all those other areas, if they can continue doing what they're doing, opening up spaces where women can actually listen to women and or learn from, or just use people as role models to show that hey, so did that in Africa. If we're talking about Africa, we can talk about. I mean, a lot of women, Western world, who have achieved. How many would you read about that you would say an African woman judge as a role model for anywhere else? So we don't have that. We don't have. But then, of course, you don't blame us judges. I'm retiring in September, less than 3 months. So I can talk. I've put in my papers. I'm free because, like one of my colleagues told me, what can they do to you again? Can they sack you? Can they do you? I've put in my papers. I'm retired. So I can talk. Maybe if I still had 3-4 more years to go, I would probably still be a bit reticent, as if to say, I wouldn't even have accepted to come to do this Hague talk or anything like that. But so you see, there is all that, like she said, it's a closed world. Yes. It's closed. We don't talk. We have no public voice or anything. It's because of the perception. The populace, we don't have, like I would always say, judges don't carry guns. We don't have a militia. We don't have. What we have is our integrity. What you have, what you carry into your courtroom is your integrity. The confidence they have that when they look at you, they know you're administering justice as justice should be. Fear, without fear or favor, ill will, or whatever it is to people. And they can sense it. Any lawyer going into a courtroom can see a compromised bench. Because they can see, they'll know from the way you're going. But when they walk in and see a free and fair, know that they're going to get justice here. So we need to be able to build that up. And then to do that, you see, the system, from when I was growing up, we didn't have this kind of corruption type of things where people are, justice is being sold in some places, justice is being twisted to fit something else and all that. But the younger generation are open up to a lot of things. Now, I want to use this opportunity basically to say sometimes you don't blame people that get to the top and compromise. Because what I discovered was that young lawyers, when they were growing up or when they were starting, you had people that helped them out. You had, how much are we being paid? So the first thing would have to be that African judges, at least let us make sure that they get proper, the pay that would equivalent to what it would need to administer justice. So you're growing up young lawyer, you have a businessman that you know, your uncle or one businessman, they're helping you here and there. And then in Nigeria, unfortunately, when the courts started deciding who gets power. And the whole system became something else, so that you had hidden powers trying to make sure that their young judges climb through to the Supreme Court or wherever they would be used for whatever it is. Now, you now have been beholden to somebody over the years, and then suddenly you're up there. Hey, it's payback time. How many people can withstand that kind of debt? It's an emotional debt. It's beyond anything. How do you look at...
But I understand from the analysis that women judges are less corrupt.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
That is what I'm trying to say. But all this works both across. Yes. We may be less.
Yes.
But don't forget that we also have emotional entanglements.
Yes.
Now, that is where you finish a woman.
Yeah.
She goes and falls in love with the lawyer or the governor or whoever it is. And love can make women do crazy stuff.
Yes.
So it's not corruption in terms of money. Yes. Will we call it corruption? Yes. But in terms of... So women have their hidden hills where, for some reason, when love and law face each other, love wins.
Yes.
So
the right way.
We have to...
In the right way, yes. In the right way.
In the right way. I love that. Love
but then I think, as you said, Lady Justice, that you are retiring. So,
yes, I'm retiring.
So your experience, your wealth of knowledge, that is, I think, that is what you could leave behind in a good way. So yes.
For me to even be here today is a kind of, like I said, I've worked for 45 years. What does it say? It says a lot that a lot of people don't do. I was talking to somebody the other day, I think Professor Matthias in the bus when we were going from Arusha to Kilimanjaro to Arusha. And I was saying that, the modern concept, a lot of people do, when the Africans saying that, say, when you eat the fruit with the seed. You know what that means? You eat the fruit with the seed. You don't leave room for the seed to grow. Now. The whole thing, forgetting that there is tomorrow.
Yes.
And that seed needs to be planted to be able to grow, to be able to go. So the world these days is a lot of what can we get right now. When I tell people I've worked for the federal government for 45 straight years, a young person, they don't even take on government jobs these days. They don't want to. No, the concept of doing the same thing for 45 years is horrifying. Where is the money? And then they don't see the money.
Commitment is there. Yeah.
So we have to have a whole paradigm shift in terms of... And then the women who want to be judges, some become judges for wrong reasons. I know a friend of mine that wanted to be a judge because there's an oddly, and because once you're a judge, of course, you're on the high table. Now, that's a wrong reason, because when you now come to do the work, being a judge is a calling. It's a calling. It's something that takes your soul.
Yes.
Any judgment I write takes a part of me. Yes. And so you need to put in a lot more than what just being the word judge. First of all, we don't eat or sleep while we're writing. As they're sitting here, if they had any judgment they're writing, their brain is writing, is working, is thinking, now, how do we do this, how do we do that? So a lot of them are not prepared for it. So we need to talk to the right people, train the right people, find out that if this is a job you can do, but at least let them hear what it's about. They don't even know the implication of what a judge is, because nobody's telling them that until you come in, and then so you thought you were coming to enjoy. This is the what. We look at a lot of our colleagues that come to the Supreme Court and they think, Supreme Court judge. Then they get there. I tell them what I tell them at the party receptions when they're having, enjoy it too. Monday next week, I give you a week. By the time you face when you see the work you have to do, you yourself will forget that being the justice of the Supreme Court is not a walk in the park. So that would be what the UNDP or anybody would do: organize situations where people can. It may be closed. They don't need to make it public like today. It may be closed, but let them have opportunities here and there, so that we get the right people to join the bench. When they get there, they do the right things and they achieve the right things.
And encourage the young women, as you said, who are entering, who are the lawyers, who are entering the schools of law, graduate schools, to get more women there. And also maybe perhaps even if I could interrupt.
I was a lecturer at the Nigerian Law School, and we used to produce like 2,300 up to right now they're about 4,000, 5,000 a year. But we used to produce for 5 years. But I would go into a hairdresser's place. My lord, you taught me in law school. So, what are you doing now? I own this place. It's fine. They've become lawyers to satisfy their parents and everything, but they want to be hairdressers. They want to sew. They want to do fashion design. They want to be artists. They want to do all those kind of things. But let it be their choice.
Yes. Yeah. So this is such a rich experience. Let me now hand over to my. Thank you so much. I mean, we could go on and on, I'm for sure. But let me hand over. Yes, a big clap. Yeah. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions from the floor. So let me hand over to my colleague, Rivai. Thank you so much, Lady Justices. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Honorable Justices. That was such an enriching conversation. We only have a few minutes left for the session, but I think we will not have done justice to this session if we don't open the floor for questions. So many hands. So I think let's start from here, and then we sweep the room going in this direction. Over to you.
Well, I'll make a brief comment. Empowering women is empowering a nation. It's very, very important. For me, it starts with my family. I've got 7 daughters who are all graduates. That, to me, is very, very important. When I became Chief Justice, I told myself that I had to make sure that I bring in a lot of graduates into the justice chain. I've caused the appointment of many female magistrates. I've brought in many female judges into the Industrial Court, the Industrial Court of Appeal, the High Court, the Commercial Court, as well as the Supreme Court, because I believe in gender parity. Fortunately for me, my head of state also believes in gender parity, and he has encouraged me to ensure the appointment of many women judges into the bench. And I would like to thank the work that is being done by UNDP in this respect, and to encourage you to continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Next input. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Your Excellencies in this room, total. I have an inclusive question for a man and a woman here in the hall. Well, I want to be, my example is Nelson Mandela. I want to be the Asian Dutch Zulu rainbow warrior influencer for Generation Z in the Asian nations. And I'm already a local small hero in Indonesia for the local community there. I have a question to Judge Luis Antonio Mondlane and Elisa Samuel Boerekamp. Because it's an inclusive question, eh? Well, the question is, the West need more role models as professors and mentors and directors from the upcoming wonderful nations, or the West, says the developing, or the West. Or the West says the developing poor third world countries where a lot of refugees come from. So you have not a nice story here in the Netherlands and Europe and the West. So what kind of actions are coming up in your mind now? For example, African inclusive world leadership during the climate crisis and social economy plus justice. What can the Western world learn about positive, optimistic leadership from Africa, from you and the future Z generations?
Thank you for that question. We'll take a couple more, and then if there are any reflections from the Honorable Justices, then we'll give the space to them. Let's move on to the other side of the room. Thank you.
Okay, she's here.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much for this great event and for the inspiring stories. My name is Alejandra, and I'm a member of the Secretariat of the G-Equal campaign that promotes gender equality in international courts and bodies. And we are here in The Hague, where the International Court of Justice sits, and where, unfortunately, after 70 years, only 5 women judges have served. So my question for you is, how can women judges conquer the international space? And also for UN Women and UNDP, I'm wondering if you address that topic in your report of women accessing international decision-making. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, if you can hand over to the lady next. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Super inspirational, so thank you for sharing very personal anecdotes. I wish I would have brought my 3-year-old daughter to be inspired by you, to know that she can be exactly as she wants and what she wants to do. I also really loved your appeal to the Chief Justices here present in the room, and we heard already some compelling arguments of the different sort of perspectives that women can bring to the table. For example, the cases that you mentioned, the ICC, when there's female witnesses. I was just wondering whether you have more sort of compelling arguments or personal experiences of rulings or processes that were different, or outcomes were different or better because there was a female judge. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take the last 2 hands, and then we'll close the in-room questions for now.
Thank you very much. My name is Joel Rubampewany. I am from Uganda. I work with an NGO called Barefoot Law. It's a non-profit-making organization that enables access to justice and the law to the most vulnerable people. And we have a couple of projects in relation to, we had one called Women Legal Empowerment for Women using technology and innovation. My question is, how do we create an ecosystem where women can thrive to become magistrates? I have a friend called Irene, and she's so passionate about joining the bench, and she has been trying that for years now. And recently, when the Uganda Judicial Service Commission advertised, she applied. But I remember there was a time we were having a conversation, and something came up, and she opened up to us about her application. She was so excited about that. And a friend told her that, do you have a godmother? Do you have a godfather in the judiciary? Because if you don't have a godmother, if you don't have a godfather, if you don't have that lighthouse, it's very difficult it's very difficult for you to maneuver and navigate and become a magistrate. And she did the interviews, and when the results came out, she didn't make it. And she's really, really down. So my question is, how do we create an ecosystem where female lawyers like Irene, who want to join the bench, can join the bench? Is there any strategy that we can take from this session?
Thank you for that important question. So last input, and then we'll give the chance to our panelists.
Yeah, a lot.
My name is Marisa Borsboom. I'm the head of Legal of Women in Tech Global Movement, among other hats. And my question is exactly seeing so many good role models. I didn't hear the word tech today. So what is, in your opinion, the role that technology and women in technology and other sectors of society can have to promote the work that is being done and to facilitate more women, but also facilitate the work of the women in the bench?
Thank you so much. I know there are so many questions. At this point, I'll take the very last one from the back. I hope the justices, you are absorbing all these questions, and you can be free to choose which ones you want to respond to. Yeah, but to the very last question.
Thank you very much. My name is Benson Ongom. I'm a journalist from Uganda. And I want to just ask the question because Judge Bosa talked about it. How do you break the barrier, the political barrier and will, especially in the appointment of female judges? How do you break that? And I think also if the chief judges could also give a hint on that. For the Ugandan case, in the 2021 election, there's a petition. The opposition key leader did petition for the results. And one of the judge who gave a contrary judgment has been sidelined. And Judge Bosa knows about that case. So how do we deal with the political barrier and the political will? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Over to you, Honorable Justices. I think feel free to just take any question.
I don't have anything that was directed at me, but these two are on the fire. I think Nigeria, I'm safe, where we don't have the gender problem when it comes to judiciary. So the two.
Yeah, this is it's a lot of questions. Let's say it's difficult to have more. We do have some African students studying here and also lecturing here. African professors that comes from time to time to teach here. I think it's a matter of priorities, investment. We do have a lot of problems in Africa, so it's difficult. Yes, yeah. I would like to answer your question from Uganda because of that your friend, Irene, she failed to the interview. Well, Mozambican system, it's a civil law system. So to enter the judicial career, maybe, I don't know, it's different with common law. So it is a competition, yeah? When I was first appointed to become a director of this institution, we used to apply the opening exams in three main cities of Mozambique. One in the north, center and south. I decided with my colleagues of the board of directors that we have to apply in all provinces to open more space for more people to compete. So we set up this strategy in all provinces. Mozambique is big. It's have 11 provinces. So we applied these exams in all provinces. You know what happened? The number of candidates increased a lot. We say from, let's say, from more or less 300 to almost 900 candidates. It's a lot of candidates. Among them, we have a lot of women. So, as the report said, Mozambique is one of the countries that in lower courts, in the court of entrance, we do have a lot of women. There's no equality. Women are more than men. And they are also judge president in that court. There is not, you were talking about godfather or good mother. Before that, I'm not saying before my time, but we used to hear about that. Yeah, people used to talk about that. But nowadays, what we get at the end of the whole recruitment process, it's so,
competitive.
Yes, but humble people, without even have Judge Mondlane has his godfather or me or another colleagues, but people, simple people, women's and young women's and men's who are bringing a lot of value for the judiciary. Mm-hmm. So my advice, it will be, I don't know what kind of system you have in Uganda, but if you, it's more, the recruitment process is more transparent, it's more open. Then it's possible that your friend can become a judge, and I hope she can. Yeah. If she's done, she can move to Mozambique.
Thank you, Justice, for that response.
Still apply to this.
So if you can be as concise as possible in your responses so that we can move to the last section of the event today. Thank you.
Session? Okay, thank you very much. I don't remember all the questions, but I'll respond to the ones from Uganda. And one question from the lady who asked whether there was a case where gender representation made a difference in the verdict. Yes, there are a number of cases, starting from the Rwandan tribunal right up to today. If you care to read up the cases, you'll find that women have made a difference in the justice system because of their perception. Actually, we have a case in the ICTR where the accused rejected a panel of women judges because they thought that the women judges were not going to render justice to them. Unfortunately, but of course, some mistakes were made by the judges and the panel was changed. But that is not to say that they would have been biased against the accused person. So yes, you have the famous case of the name escapes me at the moment, but you remember the case which laid down the fact that rape can be genocide. Rape, or another one laid down the fact that rape can be committed by women.
Yes.
Yes, and many more. And up to this moment, women judges continue to make their mark in the jurisprudence of international criminal justice and other courts. Turning to Uganda, it's a difficult situation for me because I don't know exactly what motivated the Judicial Service Commission to make the decision that they made. I hear some rumors to the same effect, but I cannot verify them. All I can do is encourage that lady to do some self-improvement on herself as she waits for the next time, and then try again. Now, regarding the justice who gave a contrary verdict regarding an election petition, and the perceived persecution of that judge, it's a concern for us all. I'm hoping that it's not the case and that it will be resolved in the right way. I don't know where that case is at the moment, but certainly it does not augur well for judicial independence if a judge makes a decision and because of that decision, then she or he is put on a pedestal for that decision, because judges are supposed to be independent and the decisions they make may be questioned, of course, but they're not supposed to be punished for those decisions. That's all I can say for now.
Thank you so much.
I don't have the full facts.
Yeah, thank you so much, Justice, for those responses. I think we've got only about 2 questions which are not answered at this point, but let's see if our colleagues from UNDP and UN Women are able to answer those. One relates to tech. Yeah. You know, I'm just thinking here in terms of e-justice and what is being done around that. And then the last question is really around how we are working and supporting development actions towards getting more women to enter the international, tribunals in international space. So I don't know if I can hand over to you on those 2. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In fact, I think technology and the digitalization is very much present actually in the justice system more and more, not just in Africa, but globally. So that's a very relevant question. I think our focus today was very much about why more women judges, why more women in the justice system is important. So we haven't focused on that. But as UNDP, we are working really globally on bringing in the technology and digital transformation into the justice system, as well as in the monitoring, analysis, and so forth. But I want to pick up one point that you also alluded to, women and tech. One of the things we're also working on beyond the justice system is the area of so-called women in STEM, how we can encourage more women to be combining their studies, bringing in some of the technology and some of these studies as well, and that would make them feel more empowered and capacitated to actually apply technology in their respective fields, including the justice system. In terms of encouraging women to participate in the international arena as well, I think a lot of the work that we as UNDP, UN Women, and other UN agencies are doing is exactly to try to, bring our convening power per se, to bring the ecosystem. Somebody was talking about how we work with the ecosystem together. So it's not just about one area or another, but looking at these issues as a complex and very much integrated set of areas where what we can do is provide platforms, provide the space for conversation, support the policies, build capacities, and then link it to the entry points for the international systems as well.
Thank you. I can add just a small point, but yes. I think building on what my colleague has said, particularly I think for the international forum is exactly what we're talking about, is having that pool of women, young women, coming up the ladder to take up these high positions in justice. So I think it's once they do have that opportunity and so forth, is to encourage and to provide that connection, the experience sharing as well with our women judges, especially the Women Judges Association. That's something that in Tanzania we've really invested on. In terms of issues related to tech, I think we need to also look at the gender divide within tech in terms of resources. Many of the judiciaries, it's how do we ensure that they reach the most vulnerable, the most excluded, the rural areas. And how do we look at technology as an avenue for that, facilitating, but also looking at as a divide as well. So looking at various options in terms of the whole environment of the judiciary system that needs to be taken into account so that we do not, further exclude others from accessing justice in the most remote areas where in many cases issues of electricity, issues of, so many barriers are there. But definitely I think that is a growing area, and many development partners, UNDP, the World Bank in Tanzania has really invested on mobile clinics, mobile courts and so forth, together with the government. And that's something that we definitely need to make sure that there's no further gender divide in these processes.
Thank you so much, Hodan. Dear panelists, unfortunately, I'm going to cut the conversation short. The good thing is you are all being invited.
Only to add, because it's important, the question about the International Forum, just to add, it's not only that we have to encourage more women to participate in this forum, but there is these procedures together. It's depending on the states. So this rule must be changed. I have my example. Recently, I applied for the position within the African Court of Human Rights. I knew there were only 2 candidates, myself and my colleague. I will not talk about his name, of course. When I was my candidate was on time. But then they choose his candidature. And they say that mine was not on time. I went on proving that it was on time. And the rest, you can take your conclusion. So we have to change these rules. Yeah. We must open. Women must be able to apply, not via states.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that very, very important closing point. Ladies and gentlemen, dear panelists, this is a very, very enriching conversation, and we have an opportunity actually to continue to interact at the mayor's reception, to which you are all invited, which is starting at 4:30 immediately after this event. So let's keep the conversation going, because I think some of the strongest transformative solutions to these things we are talking about are going to arise and come out of this kind of dialogue. So to conclude our event for today, I'm going to ask Hodan and Agi to just give 2 sentences as vote of thanks to our participants, and then we are done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 2 sentences. I will say the word justice. I think to me justice is so important. It's really the backbone of social contract. It's the backbone of the trust of citizens that underpins everything that happens at the level of nation. And I loved your statement of this is about nation building, not just about women, because of course that's part of the society. So having heard you, combining justice with the power of women in justice is to me just the most powerful thing that I've heard in a long time, and I definitely want that we'll go away motivated, energized, and from UNDP's perspective we will continue to work on these issues as many of you mentioned, and we really want to thank our partners and donors who make it possible for us to work with you, work with the man, because it's very important. So I want to say that we must continue working with men and women on these issues, and we will continue to support and encourage and providing the enabling environment for women to proceed.
Thank you so much. I think for me, my takeaways are definitely partnerships. Partnerships across the board within UN agencies to work together, partnerships with government, partnership with civil society, especially the Women Judges Association. It's critical that we hear their voices and make sure that they are part and parcel of this process. Political will is definitely a key issue that we need to make sure it does happen, but followed up by the right policies of gender policies that countries have to ensure that there is affirmative action, that there is, this symbol that we see in many cases of justice is a woman holding the scale, isn't it, of justice? And for us, I think today, my takeaway is that we have these phenomenal women and nothing can stop them. But we need to make sure that they have the resources, that they have the right policies, they have the experiences and the support of the judiciary. So for us as UN Women, definitely with UNDP, we'll be here with you throughout your journeys. So thank you.